Hey guys, welcome. Out of all the books I've ever read, this book may have had the most impact on my mental health and overall happiness. It's called Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before by Dr. Julie Smith, and the premise is sharing tested psychological practices and therapy skills that can be used by anyone. Whilst I would consider myself as someone to have relatively good mental health overall, the tools that this book teaches can be used by anyone regardless of your mental health. So, let's get into it. The book is divided into 8 subcategories, so I'll be choosing one idea from each section that has most impacted my life. So let's get into it. The first section of the book is on dark places. Whilst there was so much great content in this chapter, one particular aspect that stood out to me was understanding and implementing the fundamentals or getting the basics right. The book explains the importance of exercise, sleep, nutrition, routine, and human connection. Whilst the first 3 are always drummed into us, the inclusion of routine and human connection definitely changed my perspective on what is considered fundamental, and the book provides plenty of evidence to back this up. On motivation. The key thing I took away from the motivation section of the book is changing your relationship with failure. Often I find when I experience a failure within an area of my life, I tend to try and change by looking at everything that went wrong and often labeling myself as lazy or unmotivated. However, the book finds that self-criticism is actually more likely to lead to depression and negative emotions rather than motivating yourself. And the book cites a case study to show this. On emotional pain. Possibly one of the biggest takeaways I found in this book is discussed on page 115, where it states that having fewer concepts of words to differentiate negative emotions leads to higher levels of depression after stressful events. This is something that I've instantly applied to my life by using a feeling wheel and journaling when I have negative emotions. Since increasing my emotional vocabulary, I have seen an instant improvement in my ability to deal with difficult situations, and I would definitely recommend that anyone out there try this out. On grief. Whilst I feel as if I'm not currently experiencing any profound grief, I did still find insight into the concept that grief doesn't necessarily mean the loss of a loved one, but can come in a range of other forms. The section also addressed the consequences of unresolved grief and how it can be linked to a range of unhealthy feelings and behaviours. On self-doubt. An interesting part from this section is that it rejects the concept that you need to work on your self-esteem. Self-esteem generally refers to the idea of evaluating yourself and believing those assessments. However, the fundamental problem is that we often compare ourselves to others and often those that are hyper-successful within a certain field. Interestingly, research shows that having a higher self-esteem is not linked to better relationships or better performance, but is actually associated with arrogance, prejudice, and discrimination. On fear. One insightful idea from this part related to discussing our own thought bias. It is a natural human reaction to overreact to things, and this is something that probably happens to people on a daily basis. However, this is often not rooted in reality. Sometimes it can be beneficial to take a step back and view our thoughts and emotions from a bird's eye view rather than taking them at face value. This can be done by journaling certain problems and then determining whether they are rooted in fact or not. On stress. A key takeaway from this part is that our relationship with stress affects how we act in high pressure situations. If we change our outlook on stress, it can become a useful asset that can improve our overall performance. And finally, on a meaningful life. The last section takes a similar approach to much of what is said in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Whilst a goal is something with a limited lifespan and often holds little value after accomplishment, our values are something that will stick with us throughout your life. Journaling is a great way to determine your values and figure out what is meaningful to you. Thanks for watching. So, hopefully you managed to take away something interesting from this summary. I definitely recommend checking this book out, Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before by Dr. Julie Smith.